Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Oh my goodness, Mr. Trump has laid down some tweets for us this morning. I know there are a few right there. I call them the blah blah tweets because they're just videos of politics, blah blah blah. But you always say we can't dismiss them. You need to talk about them. So go ahead and get that off the board so we get to the really good stuff.
Yes, Betsy, this is a very important day for the tweets. So we are so thrilled that for the second time he's mentioned one of the biggest things going on in D.C. that everyone else ignores except Matt Gaetz. We'll get there in a second. Okay, the tweet here is about the 75th anniversary of D-Day. Of course, he gives a very lovely speech. And what I just wanted to say about this is that, this is really good work of Mr. Parscale, because you are finding the only news really worth looking at right here or on Truth News Headlines. And boy, this makes me think of what he said about Cambridge Analytica and the fact that nobody listened to a word he said. And now what he has is, he is nailing it. He is nailing it. People are just going to go to this site and just see these tweets, and that's the only news they really need to see anymore.
Well, this is really it. People are very confused about news, what to look for. We remind you, go to the Trump tweets first, look them over, and then if you feel you want to go deeper, then find a decoder like us who will take these decodes. And also, if your grandmother doesn't know how to get Twitter, then show her some of the shadow places where you can pick up the feed but not have to be confused on Twitter. Everybody out there, you make sure your family, friends, and colleagues know how to access these Trump tweets.
Go to Truth News Headlines, bottom of the page, click on the bird. Tweets.
Yeah, tweets.
You can't miss. That is why that has been there from the beginning, because that is the news, folks. And if you don't realize this, that's the only news that mainstream media really has except negativity and garbage.
Yeah, because we're moving into a hot phase of this information war, and we need to have one voice that's leading us through it. Now, can we get down to business and get some tweets done?
Okay, so he's giving a wonderful speech about D-Day, and then the next one is about the veteran's choice, okay? This went beyond anybody's imagination. This was a great idea. If the veterans can't get service at the veteran hospital, then they can go to any hospital. Why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they get the best of treatment? They should go to the very finest of treatment. So what he did here is historic, and unlike so many presidents before who send these young people off to get harmed or to die, and then they come back and then they're treated even worse than they were in war. That is literally what happens to our veterans. They're experimented on while they're in war. They're given drugs. So many of them commit suicide because why? Well, let's not get into that. The point is thank God that Trump is looking out for our veterans.
All he needs to do is reduce the salaries of these senior executive service employees down to $1 a year using the Holman Clause, and then there'll be plenty of money to take care of our vets.
Yes, and he's got some great ideas we're going to talk about with the budget here in just a second. There's also now, the next one is a picture of him sitting at FEMA, and guess who's sitting next to him? Oh, that's right, Melania. Oh, that's right, she didn't leave the country, and he didn't give her a black eye or anything. She's sitting right there. Isn't that amazing? So anyway, they're looking at the preparations for the hurricane season, as he did last year also, and this is very serious because he actually responded better than any president in history to the hurricanes, and came up with ideas of the way to help people in it from a business point of view that was radical and extremely helpful. So the response to these hurricanes is just going to get better. Last year, though, we pointed out many of these hurricanes seem to have been spawned. And so I hope that this year that the chemical, well, let us call it the geochemical manipulation that's going on with our weather doesn't happen again this year.
Well, I happen to know a nice young man in the Coast Guard who did an exceptional job through the last hurricane and got a lot of commendations for his hard work. A shout out to the Coast Guard, and we hope that they'll be there to protect us as they did with the others.
We love the Coast Guard. They're our first line of defense. Our biggest border is all on water. So thank you to the Coast Guard.
Okay, let's get going. Now remember, if you want to read these tweets as we talk about them, click on the link below in the description box. Isn't it ironic, getting ready to go to the G7 in Canada to fight for our country on trade? We have the worst trade deals ever made. Then off to Singapore to meet with North Korea and the nuclear problem. Back home, we still have the 13 angry Democrats pushing the witch hunt.
Whether it's G7, G20, G8, G whatever, it doesn't matter. When they go into a room with Trump, it's him and them, one-on-one. This is not a game anymore of a pack of wolves jumping on America and eating us to death. That is what trade has been. We could go into the details of who actually created these things, but the point is G7 ain't G7. G7 is him squaring off with May and saying, you haven't even invited me to your country, and now I find out that you're ripping us off completely with Serco, with USAID. By the way, you're not going to get as much money from USAID anymore. Sorry. None of you are going to. Oh, Merkel, you and your 22 million migrants, you call them, who have overrun your country of Europe, and also the EU is there, represented by two different people. So the European Union, Britain, Germany, Canada, really? Our friends? No. He is not going to do any more multilateral trade agreements with anybody. These are going to be unilateral or bilateral. Basically, he's going to tell them what it's going to be. They can complain all they want, as they've done in all these trade deals. Doesn't matter. They all soften up, and they're all going to go his way as long as the Congress and the Senate can back off and shut up and leave him to do these deals, which he is winning so much for us, we can't even calculate how much he's winning.
You know, when he's having dinner with Theresa May, can he ask her how Geoffrey Patty's doing?
Yeah, we should say, basically, why didn't you send Sir Jeff, since he's actually doing the real business here?
Right.
I'd rather deal with the man who is in charge.
Right. Well, of course, we know now that this ring of people that the Queen has surrounded herself with actually tried to overthrow our election and unseat President Trump.
And what is happening here? He's making the contrast between, he has to go deal with these bimbos who try to cheat and lie and say, yeah, with the aluminum and the steel, we buy it from you cheap, we sell it to other countries at a markup price, and we want that to continue. And he's saying, I have to deal with these people, these kind of inane, terrible business deals, which just make America lose, or America wasn't winning in any business deal. I have to deal with that when I am actually saving, and the reason he mentions North Korea and nuclear problems, Japan is one of the people he's meeting with. And he's meeting with him personally beforehand. And so what is going on here, he's saying, Japan, if we're taking North Korea out of the nuclear equation that launches missiles right over you, you need to step up. We made you into one of the greatest powers on the face of the earth after World War II in terms of industrialism, in terms of industry technology. We need to have personal deals between us. And that's what he's going to do with everybody. And even those personal deals are going to be subject to change. NAFTA, it's gone. G7, who cares? G20, who cares? What he's dealing with is restructuring the whole world. The globe is no longer going to be globalism. And these 13 angry Democrats, as we've always said, that's a reference to 13 angry men and a jury. There are 17 lawyers who came with Robert Mueller in a special investigation, 7 of them out of WilmerHale, a very corrupt group, which we again are revealing is part of this whole machination of Spygate going back to Sir Geoffrey Patty, who is the Privy Council, who's on the Privy Council of the Queen of England, of course, the Crown of England. So what he's pointing at here is, and I want to make this very clear, there were many, many poorer people than the 17 that were on his group to begin with, after he added Andrew Weissman. He spent $4.6 million in FBI and DOJ support. That included Orr, what's his name? Bill Orr? Mm-hmm.
Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, no, Bruce Orr.
Bruce Orr and Lisa Page, and that included Peter Strzok and many, many, many others. They're all Democrats.
Hey, I'm waiting for somebody to come out with a deck of playing cards where all these characters on the playing cards, and if you come up with them, because we just don't have enough time to do it, let us know and we'll give you a plug on Truth News.
Now, it's many more than 13 Democrats, and that's the reason he says sometimes, and more, in this witch hunt. And why are they angry? That's what I want to point at. Why are they angry? Because they got caught red-handed in election meddling and then an active coup to overthrow our president. That's why they're so angry.
Okay, we're going to move on to good luck to Alice Johnson. Have a wonderful life. Of course, that was thanks to Kim Kardashian. Shout out to Kim. You have anything to say about that?
Congratulations, Kanye, for having one of the 7 of the top 10 positions in the music business right now in terms of his recent album. Isn't that amazing that he jumped on board? He was on board with Trump a long time ago, but that he jumped on board just at the time that he became very, very, very popular. And then Alice Johnson, life imprisonment for her first-time drug offense that wasn't even hers. I mean, why would anyone not be happy about that? Did that make it into any mainstream media positive report? I doubt it.
Okay, next we move to Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law professor. You will see that tweet duplicated. I don't know why, but it is. Quote, "It all proves that we never needed a special counsel. All of this could have been done by the Justice Department. Don't need a multi-million-dollar group of people with a target on someone's back. Not the way justice should operate," close quote. So true.
We all know Alan Dershowitz, who's makes statements all the time. He makes pronouncements because he's supposedly the great lawyer. We never needed a special counsel. Well, first off, it's illegal. It's unconstitutional. It had no founding. It had no basis. It had no standing because you can't bring those charges against the president, and there are no such charges as were mentioned in the statement of the indictment's parameters. So it's completely absurd. The Justice Department, there is no Justice Department. I'm going to strike that out, and I'm going to put fake justice. Okay? That's what we have now. Folks, we have fake news. We have fake justice. we're living in the post-truth age. It's called falsehood politics. You're allowed to lie. That's the reason the dossier exists, because of opposition politics. That's called lying. That's called subterfuge. That's called subliminal programming, espionage. That's called manipulation, lie, mind-bending, psyops, mass deception, whatever you want to call it. But it should not happen. And that's what we actually have coming out of the Justice Department, because they still will not unredact those documents, which they by law must, to give to congressional oversight. We are still fighting, Grassley's fighting 1 year of waiting for some of the recommendations that he's made. For instance, like right now, he's fighting Michael Flynn. The plea deal is in. There is no more case. You cannot use those pathetic excuses. Give us the documents that you charged him with. Show us what you held against him, that he created that plea deal with you, which should be thrown out anyway for many reasons that we've mentioned.
But they need it for their own investigation.
And plus, it was illegal. Plus, Sally Yates lied. Plus, we know that Comey said that Flynn didn't lie. We know the two people who interviewed him said he didn't lie. Sally Yates then said he lied. Forced Trump to fire him based upon lies, based upon intercepts from unmasking that was illegal. So, I don't know how I got off on that.
Well, I'm sure the next tweet will take you right back where you left it.
Just justice, you see. Justice.
Well, of course, we know that there is no justice, and we also know that Jeff Sessions is an enemy of the state. Okay, now we move to the next tweet. When and where will all of the many conflicts of interest be listed by the 13 angry Democrats, plus working on the witch hunt hoax? There has never been a group of people on a case so biased or conflicted. It is all a Democrat excuse for losing, big letters, the election. And where is the server? But before you go on, I want to take you deeper in here. This is really not just about the Democrats losing an election. This is about a group of people who think that they are above the rule of law and the Constitution in this country. And they planned to take down and overthrow our government. When Trump won, that was not in their plans. Then the mission became to get rid of him, and I'm sure they had many plans for that, but it's not working. So Trump is being very polite here to say that they're upset about losing the election. It's so much deeper. And by the way, this JFK stuff that's not released, I wonder if it's not released because it's not about George Bush, who we all know was hanging out at the book depository that day. It's about the crown and the monarch and how they are involved in the CIA, the rogue CIA, and the assassination of JFK. I'm just saying you don't have to comment, but maybe that's why.
That's a big part of it too. And our contributor John Barnwell really wants to bring in that story, expand it to show that it had to do with free energy devices and all these other things that Kennedy, as president, became aware of, and he wanted to, of course, end the CIA, and then Allen Dulles.
Yes, but what I'm saying is it goes back to the crown, because all of our research is pointing that way.
Allen Dulles is and his brother, John, worked for the Rockefellers. The Rockefellers are simply
Right.
British agents. Same thing with the Warburg, same thing with on and on and on. So let's go back here for a second. The conflict of interest we've mentioned so many times because Wilmer Hale itself is where Manafort is represented. So, and they say that they have these firewalls. There's no firewalls. Recently there was an article saying that Comey and Mueller, they shouldn't have recused themselves. They weren't friends. Hello? They both worked at HSBC. They couldn't be any closer. They followed each other. They stood up against Ashcroft together as I always call them bunk buddies because they're closer than anybody can be, whether I'm speaking of the military or the prison definition of bunk buddy. The point is, I am certain from my head to my toe that Comey was doing exactly what Mueller told him to do when he was the head of the FBI, because they had been working together hand in glove for so many years. They go back to we have them together in meetings where they were taking over patents in the 70s. Don't tell me that they. And by the way, he's not one of the 13 angry Democrats. He's the leader who is a lying rhino Republican. Mueller is a Republican.
No, I don't care if he's Republican or
laughing at
Democrat.
that.
He's a traitor, and he's there to cover up the crimes of this traitorous, murderous group of people. They're anti-American. They're trying to take down this country.
But it wasn't his turn to be in office, either as the head of the DOJ or the head of the FBI. So as a Republican, he was sitting on the sidelines when Comey stepped up, as a Democrat, and John Brennan's a Democrat, and they were all Democrats in these. They're all Democrats, except for one, the guy they called in, who has absolute highest ethical review of anyone in the entire United States, who actually is the most corrupt Republican lawyer and fixer and criminal, and look at his history and you will see that. So when he says conflict of interest, there couldn't be any bigger conflict of interest, but the reason that they're angry again is because they got caught. And that's what he points out. They're mad because they got caught. They never, ever thought any of this would come to light, and now they are fighting it so tooth and fang that they're all willing to die for it. That's why we have we have about 60 people just up and leaving the Congress and the Senate. Oh, they're just leaving quietly as quickly as they can, like a Jeff Flake, just getting out before it really hits the fan.
Well, that leads us to our next tweet. How could Jeff Flake, who is setting record low polling numbers in Arizona and was therefore humiliatingly forced out of his own Senate seat without even a fight, and who doesn't have a clue, think about running for office, even a lower one again? Let's face it, he's a flake.
He is a flake, and when they say flake, he's from Snowflake, Arizona, and it's named Flake because of his family was raised there, so he literally is Flake, 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 Flake. And he's a Mormon.
Sometimes last names tell you something energetically about a person,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's Loretta Lynch.
He's the ultimate
It's Jeff
snowflake.
Flake.
Yes.
It's James Comey. It's Herr S.S. Mueller. Names get, at this point in our evolution, these names resonate with what you're emanating.
And Flake is a joke. He actually ran unencumbered last time, and he this time his numbers quite some time ago when they were running them were so low that they realized that he couldn't win if anybody ran against him. And he wants to be president. Oh, that's right. Let's see.
So they don't have anybody
Since
on their
Jeff
bench.
Bezos isn't going to be president, because he said he'd take the job if he had time. Since Mark Zuckerberg isn't going to be president, since he's now being sued for billions in the European Union and all the separate countries, in Australia, and probably very soon here in America, he's not going to be president. Since Eric Schmidt is too busy giving technology to Cuba, one of the only communist countries left in the world. He's over there after he was in North Korea giving them technology. So he's not going to run for president.
Well, they're just testing to see who they can get up there. What I've noticed, a lot of articles coming out about they're even trying to push Deval Patrick, from Massachusetts. What a loser. And they're now pushing his name in front of everybody.
How about Biden the pedophile?
Really, they have nobody on their bench. We don't need to worry about who they throw.
Again, Biden was in a public setting again the other day fondling a child on camera. How is he even allowed
to be around children?
How is he not charged? He should be charged from simply what we see on the news. And going back, where is the server, Trump asked in the previous one?
Oh, yes.
He meant the Democratic National Committee server, but he's insinuating the server of the Imran Awan that had an off-site proxy server that gathered together all the information from the computers, the laptops, the iPads, and the Blueberries of...
No, they're called, Blackberries.
Blackberries. I always say blueberries because I like blueberries better than blackberries. But they all went, Imran Awan had them all, including Podesta's emails, including Hillary's Democratic National Committee server. All the DNC server was going through the Imran server, which ran through Becerra's office. And last time I saw the Daily Caller, who's been following this from the beginning, they literally went in and took a picture of it still sitting there after the Inspector General had brought 12 charges against the Imran Pakistani espionage group. 12 charges from the Inspector General of the Congress, and the one person, the Jeff Sessions, a junior lawyer that he assigned from the FBI, that working with the FBI, brought no charges, though there were 12, what should have been 12 separate indictments for espionage against Imran and his family and the people working with him, which that evidence is so preponderant, it's amazing. So there's another server. And when we get that in our heads, that Imran Awan was literally also working with the tech guy who was in charge of Hillary's personal server in her house, and was the tech guy integrating with the person who was in charge of her contract for her server, which she set up knowingly to be against the law. Well, Imran got into that too. Now, Imran has been charged with, on his way out, after 4 of his gang had already beat feet to Pakistan and the FBI let them leave, after the Inspector General and the Capitol Police had brought charges against them, and a laptop of Debbie Wasserman Schultz's was found with a note from the lawyer saying, because my lawyer is giving this to you, you cannot hold me responsible for anything that is in here. That was the leverage. That was the extortion of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who, of course, led the Democratic National Committee, and who, of course, was Hillary's best friend, and who was, knew the mind of Podesta and Hillary more than anybody, so she was involved in the Russian dossier. Of course, she was involved in knowing of the breach. She would have been responsible for the fact that they had hired the worst IT guys in the world, and that Imran Awan, who all the other IT people on the entire Hill knew that this guy was corrupt because he never showed up for work. He ran a whole series of car lots and scams and scandals on properties, homes and other properties and businesses, and he even threatened his own relatives, extorted them, was charged with extortion. All throughout all of this, never showed up for work, and brought everything to an off-site proxy server where he had a guy actually doing the work who wasn't even on the payroll. And by the way, none of these people had ever had a background check because Hillary Clinton brought them in through her Office of Senior Executive Training Institute that was in the office of the New York Google headquarters. And therefore, these spies were trained and put there. And Trump knows this. It's just that nobody wants to deal with it. He has to deal with what is open knowledge. But this is what he's saying. Where is the server? He means 3 servers. Where is the Democratic National Committee server that was only looked at by CrowdStrike, who was the only person who looked at it was Dmitry Alperovitch, who was one of the most criminal Russian cyber warfare actors and an FBI CIA agent that we've known about for a long time. We revealed them a long time ago. So he wants to know where that server is. He wants to know where the server the Awans had in Becerra's office. And he wants to know where the off-site proxy server is. And then that one went to other servers. And we know that equipment was stolen so that a server, a very expensive high-level server, was set up in Pakistan. So there was probably still, to this very day, running out of Becerra's office, a direct line of everything that goes on with 40 Democratic Congress people who Pelosi told had to go onto the system. I'm sorry, did I get carried away?
Yeah, you did. So
Okay.
the next tweet we're going to go to, but I have a question. Now, that he tweeted that at 8:07 a.m. about the server, and I know that's a hot button because he revisits this server issue in a later tweet, later in the morning. But 40 minutes later, he's talking about Jeff Flake. Do you think there's any relationship to Flake and the server or anything? I mean, what is
Yes,
the
there is.
position of Flake coming after this? We have to be mindful of placement.
Flake had been informed by Brennan about the dossier. Now, there were 8 people and others who were directly informed, some who were not the Gang of 8, that Brennan took it upon himself to go say, hey, there's dirty stuff that we have on the president. He's colluding with Russia. He's taking money. We have the proof. There's the Trump Tower server. He met with Natalia Veselnitskaya. And all this Trump. They told these people this stuff and they did nothing about it. They're criminals because they knew that the election was being meddled in. They were told because Brennan needed to cover his rear. And then they were lied to by Comey when we now know that there was the interagency group Crossfire Hurricane that included Brennan, Peter Strzok, and Comey. And now we have, I love this, predicted this by the way, that Bill Priestap, the head of the counterintelligence division of the FBI, wants to claim he doesn't know nothing. He's blaming it all on Peter Strzok, as I told you would happen. The second person, the lieutenant.
Folks out there, do you know how hard it is to live with somebody who's constantly saying, I told you so? This is why I finally got you on YouTube.
Well, that's why, I go away to the conclave and don't come around very often because, I know you don't want to hear the stuff that I have to say because we sit and talk about this. Matter of fact, these are mostly Betsy's ideas that I'm telling you. We talk with all these people.
All right, let's move forward.
I just get to
blah,
say
blah,
it.
blah. Okay, the next one, and I want to say something about this one before you start. Looking forward to seeing my friend Prime Minister Abe Shinzo of Japan at noon. We'll be discussing North Korea and trade. We have all out here in the independent media world been waiting for this economy to crash and burn. We see the cliff, and we know that it's only being propped up because there's manipulation going on in the markets. My biggest concern, and I've voiced it many times, is that people don't realize that we have lost so much manufacturing that when it all crashes, where are we going to get our stuff? And we also know now that China's really not our friend. So what's going to happen when the economy crashes? And I'm so glad to see President Trump reaching out to establish relationships with North Korea and South Korea and Japan, because these are the places that can make the stuff for us when we say sayonara, China.
See what I'm saying, folks? Where do you think I get my ideas?
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's the way I see it.
You nailed it. I was going to say that.
So we need to be very supportive.
You just did the next one.
We need to be very supportive of Trump's effort to make peace in North Korea. And what I would say to Kim Jong-un is, dude, you are going to make out like a bandit because Americans love shopping for stuff. We need somebody to make it.
And to just underscore and support what you just said, Taiwan is doing live action drills to repel China. China is doing live action drills over Taiwan. We have a war going on right now. No one wants to speak about it except us. Do you hear anybody saying this at all? Once a month, they're going to give you a report somewhere in the alternative news that tells you the truth that every day planes that are loaded with active live bombs are flying over Taiwan. China is trying to muscle Taiwan into simply, right now, next step for China is, what did he call it? The One Belt, One Road. That means he's going to take off his belt and he's going to beat you till you get on his road. That is who the premier of China is. He's now really upset with North Korea because they're going to join with South Korea and do exactly what you said, make our stuff for us instead of China.
Yeah.
And what you said is so true. He's going to say to Japan, when he says North Korean trade, that means, no. What that means, let me interpret that. That means dudes, we spend a lot of money on North Korea. You're going to pay for it. And we're down in the South China Sea right now doing exercises with huge costs. You're going to pay for that too. We are not doing any of your work for us anymore. North Korea launched missiles that went over your friggin' island, Japan, and you didn't do anything now, did you? You waited for us. We're going to charge for that. That's all he's saying. When he says my friend, that means he has him in his pocket. Oops, I hope I hope Japan doesn't hear this. Okay, so sliding on.
Yes, now I need to go downstairs and vacuum the whole downstairs level. So I'm going to just read this tweet and then I'll be back when you're finished, okay? So here we go. Our Justice Department must not let Awan and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, my name again, look at that name, off the hook. The Democrat IT scandal is a key to much of the corruption we see today. They want to make a plea deal to hide what is on their server. Where is the server? Really bad. Now, this server is capitalized, unlike the last one, so that could be a subtle difference.
Now, I challenge anybody to explain, as we did with the first tweet, without even looking at the second tweet, that there were multiple servers and that Trump knows this and that he will be addressing this. And yet he comes out now, and what he's pointing out is just beautiful because nobody wants to talk about this. So what's he saying? Our Justice Department, our fake justice, must not let Awan and Debbie Wasserman Schultz off the hook. Now, why does he mention Debbie Wasserman? Because even after the first off, after the Capitol Hill police arrested Awan and basically said, you stole all this equipment, you have all these fake documents, you stole millions of dollars worth of equipment, you get paid more than anybody else, you get paid more than the representatives themselves. All of your staff gets paid more. They don't come to work. They don't have security clearances. We see some problems here. They arrested him, and then they asked, and then they said, oh, no, let him go. And then the Inspector General got involved, and as we told you, 12 charges. I think it's 12 or 13 charges, each one a separate charge of horrifying crimes. Each one of them he goes to jail for life for. Direct conscious espionage. And we're not going to use that clause that he willfully or he did it with intent. No, these are espionage crimes. Doesn't matter who they are, what they signed, whatever. Doesn't matter if their name is Hillary Clinton. You go to jail for this stuff. Why didn't they go to jail? Because Debbie Wasserman Schultz promoted him at that point, brought him over to the Democratic National Committee, where the server is, the server under question that the FBI never seized that supposedly had Russian hacks on it. Lies. Those are all lies. He went over there and was directly there, and he left his server on Capitol Hill in Becerra's office, still stealing all the information, sending it to a proxy server, and probably selling it to anyone who wants it.
Anybody but Americans know what's going on.
Everyone knows but us.
Right.
So Debbie Wasserman Schultz raised him up and said, okay, if he can't be an IT guy, he's forbidden to be an IT guy, I'm going to make him an advisor. So she gave him a raise, a title, moved him over to the Democratic National Committee, and protected him, while then Dmitry Alperovitch came in and on those same exact lines, in a matter of that long, put his Falcon program on, which is another spy system that draws it all out into his proxy server at CrowdStrike. It does not protect against viruses. It does not stop hacking. It does not stop anything. It is simply spyware. And he admits this. I've heard him admit it on television where he says, no. Falcon simply goes in and monitors. And I knew he said instantaneously he knew that it was the Russians. He knew who the footprints. He knew it was Putin without even going there. Literally over the phone, supposedly, he sent Falcon into the DNC and over the phone determined what the problem was. And that was the only report we ever got. And the Justice Department, FBI, went and said 3 times, you have been hacked. Well, how did they know they'd been hacked? They don't have any evidence. They don't show any evidence. How did the FBI go 3 times to the Democratic National Committee and say, you've been hacked? They were never hacked. They had breaches, And that was in the WikiLeaks, and I've said this so many times I'm blue in the face, that on December 14th, they admitted both Hillary's weaknesses and that they had had 2 breaches. On December 28th, they started their buffer program to try to hide these things and to blame everything on the candidate they were most scared of, Trump, and on the thing they were the most weak in, Russia. And so they used Alexander Chalupa, who's on the Atlantic Council, the big PR company for NATO, who hates Russia. They're the number 1 people promoting anti-Russian nonsense. And Dmitry Alperovitch is on the Atlantic Council. They immediately created this program. Comey came in. They got the spies. Here's the spies. Everybody is now really upset because the Strzok page notes that say there were spies. The out of continental United States spies. Page asks Strzok, are all of our out of the United States continental area spies in place? With a plural. Well, that would be Stephen Halper, that would be Joseph Mifsud, that would be Franklin Foer, that would be Felix Sater, that would be Carter Page, that would be Sir Richard Dearlove, that on and on and on, that, and then it goes all the way back to, yes, say the name.
Stephen Halper. Who are you talking about?
Yes, and who did Stephen Halper bow down to, sir?
Christopher Sale.
Jeffrey.
We're talking about Jeffrey Patty. I thought we were looking downstream.
Let's
I
all
didn't know you
bow.
were looking upstream.
Let's all bow to the corporate king, Sir Jeffrey
the bottom
Patty.
line is we Americans, we didn't win the American Revolutionary War. Okay, they used a huge psyop on us way back when. We didn't know about it, and now we're waking up to it. But we've got to win it this time, and if that means getting our borders up, shutting it down, studying, because we may have a big immigration to this country by Europeans because they're being overrun by this refugee thing. And from the latest, I see that they may have reached a point where there's no turning back. So we might have Europe becoming this huge caliphate. And so we have to have a place for Europeans to go. Welcome to America.
You just posted an article on Belgium and the European Union stating that 28 nations state not only no more migrants, they're sending them back 500,000 at a time, and that the policy was wrong, and that their nations are crumbling, and that they hope that this works if they do it quickly, because otherwise they now have done a study that says the European Union, Christianity, and the nations of the European Union will no longer exist in 5 years.
Yes, and this is a very serious thing. So we need to get our walls up, people. Do not give in to it. And then we need to look to other countries to help us with our manufacturing, and we need to bring everything to America. And if people tell you that's isolationism, whatever, we have to protect ourselves right now. The war that's going on, the information war, the economic war is intense. So America first, right? Now,
you've nailed it. European Union, 740 approximately million people. What do we got? Half of that? We have 20 million illegal immigrants in this country right now because of Obama's policies. Europe has 22 million. They're collapsing.
Yeah.
Hello, we're going to collapse if we do not take care of the immigration problem, and only the Congress can do that, and that's why Trump keeps pounding on them and why they're trying to sneak in this nonsense. If they give amnesty to DACA, that will be illegal, and it will mean all immigrants are legal.
Well, we are allowing the invasion, and you have to see that invasions are taking place, not like it was in the old days in World War II, the way you remember it. They got more sneaky in how they do it. Instead of confronting and taking down America directly with, tanks and helicopters and planes, they infiltrated our government. They infiltrated with this thing called Senior Executive Service. They took over all the contracts. I mean, when you have the U.S. Patent Office that's being run by Serco, which is a British operation, this is not right, people, and we've got to make it right. We have to stand up. Now, and your job out there is to educate and enlighten as many people as you can. And I'm seeing some really good stuff coming from alt media, I call them independent media creators. For example, I just saw Your Free TV, and she did an excellent job taking this latest intel drop from what we've uncovered with this Spygate being the biggest international espionage ever in the history of humanity. Where are you, Fox and friends? Crickets. Okay, so it's independent media that's going to be telling you the truth going forward. Turn off the darn television. All right, next one.
No, can't go on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had to have a moment.
Debbie Washington Machine Schultz must be addressed again. She's the lawsuit's going forward, claiming that she ripped off everyone as the head of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, which she did, and she admitted she did in the first plea, and said, but we don't tell anybody that the primaries mean anything to us. We have the right to just ignore those primaries, take the money of people donating it, do whatever we want with it, and we have no obligation whatsoever. As a matter of fact, there's one obligation. I, as the executive director, as the chairman of it, am the only person responsible. I quit. That's what she did. Well, she tried to do this for Imran Awan.
The DNC is a private corporation. And so, for example, when you look for justice, well, these people go to these federal courts. And what did we find out in our research? The federal court system was another way that these sneaky Brits got into our country, and they created the federal court system. It is incorporated. It's incorporated like the Federal Reserve. So they don't work under the Constitution.
90% of corporations in this country are incorporated in Holland with a company called CT Corporation. Look closely, folks. You'll see that Holland, Germany, and Britain still rule. Now, let's go back one more time to Imran Awan. He's doing a plea deal on stealing mortgage money. On the way out of the country, he decided, after ripping off all of his relatives and everybody and taking, the largest amount of money any IT people have ever gotten for 5 years from Congress without doing much work at all, he still had to rip off Congress one more time by trying to basically defraud that credit union on another mortgage deal. And mind you, there were many. So he gets caught, and then they hold him up. But wait, he'd already been charged with being a spy. Why is he not in jail? Why is he leaving the country? They only catch him at the airport, and now they put a...
Are we going to talk about Judge Chutkan?
Judge Chutkan, who has slanted this whole thing completely.
An Obama appointee?
The criminality going on in this court under Judge Chutkan and under Jeff Sessions and underneath Christopher Wray should put all three of them in jail. Please, Mr. President, use this. Hire a U.S. Marshal to be your enforcer and arrest those people, because this is a conspiracy. They're letting this person off without charging them, though the Inspector General said there were 13 charges of the worst espionage crimes in U.S. history. Well, he didn't say in U.S. history. He said the worst that he had ever known. So, you expect Michael Horowitz's Inspector General report going to do something?
Michael Horowitz is SES, Jeff Sessions is, Christopher Wray is.
Donna Brazile has to answer to the Federal Elections Commission, and now the charges brought in Maine against her because she took $84 million that was supposed to go to the Democratic National Committee and gave it directly to the Hillary Victory Fund. And this is well known, and the charges are in court, and there's other charges against her right now, and she admits, no, we don't promise nothing. No, you give your money to the Democratic National Committee, we do what we want. What's on the server? Mr. President, you've asked this, I will answer that. George Soros's $6 billion illegal dollars worth of contributions to the Democratic National Committee since Barack Obama's first bid. Their program that goes out and it targets and attacks donors. Their program that was built by, Shavalenko in India for Eric Schmidt, and then used on Google and used on Facebook and Twitter, and this was the template to win. That's what this was all about. This was about the fact that they didn't care there was espionage. How do you think Hillary... We've said this again and again. Hillary is pay to play. She recently just came to light that in October, late September, early October, Merkel took 5 million, basically equivalent of our dollars, German Deutschmarks, and donated them to the Clinton Foundation. And within 48 hours, Clinton came on live television everywhere internationally and said that her favorite politician in the world is Angela Merkel.
Okay, I feel we're going out in the weeds. Was there anything on the server, anything more that you wanted to make sure that our patriots out there knew about?
Yes, all the things they're accusing Brad Parscale and Trump of with Cambridge Analytica, which they actually didn't do. Those are all lies. They didn't use 50 million. They used 270. It was third-hand material, blah, 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 blah.
Because our research then showed us with Cambridge Analytica that it leads itself all the way back to the Queen. So that was a good for us.
Thank you very much. That was the Trump effect.
Yes.
But at the same time, Eric Schmidt's meddling in the election through the U.S. Digital Service, run directly out of President Obama's White House, which then rigged the election and used the Global Engagement Center because they spent $160 million on having strategic communications laboratories rig the elections in the Global Engagement Center, which is allowed to do propaganda in America if ordered by the president, conducted direct propaganda. It all goes to the president, and they were just following the way they do it in Britain. But now Britain's got caught with their pants down. America, through Cambridge Analytica, tried to catch Trump with his pants down, and in fact is catching the opposite and catching our evil controllers in Britain. And those companies, SCL, one of them is going bankrupt, and one of the companies they control, Serco, is going bankrupt. And now there's going to be a new vote on Brexit because Soros has proven that SCL rigged those elections. Well, we had the opposite going here. We had Eric Schmidt doing it on what he considered the very fine. He gave $1.5 billion to rig the elections, and they're so angry because, and if Trump would just listen to him. Get the servers, dudes. Where are the servers? I'll tell you where the servers are. Are you ready? The DNC server is in John Podesta's safe in his house.
Okay.
That's where I predict.
All right, where's the other one?
The Becerra server has been seized by Jeff Sessions and is now in Christopher Wray's secret office, where they also have 6 CDs that have the 33,000 deleted emails of Hillary and 1 USB drive that has those 33,000, where they have Anthony Weiner's computers, where they have Hillary's, Cheryl, all of her lawyers, and Huma's computers, all those. They weren't smashed, and their Blackberries weren't smashed. We now know this. Christopher Wray admitted this under testimony. He has them all. Why aren't they being looked at?
Well, because it would show their crimes. Okay.
So there's been investigations that have been asked to be have been ordered by supposedly Jeff Sessions. Oh, that was like the one person he put on the Imran Awan investigation, and now Imran Awan is going to get a plea deal and leave this country, and he's the #1 most known espionage spy in U.S. history. But he's right up there with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary Clinton because they participated willingly because of their ignorance and because of their hubris.
Aren't we still under a national emergency?
Yes, we are. Yeah, the Executive Order 12333 says by Obama, tie these 13 executive orders into one so that all I have to do is blink my eye, even if there's a coronal mass ejection from the sun, and I can take all your food, I can take your guns, I can take your bank accounts, I control everything. It's the worst martial law ever created. Obama created it for Hillary. Trump now has that, and he has declared a national emergency, so good luck, y'all.
Okay. I am sorry, folks, that we're taking a long time with these tweets. If the president would tweet less, our videos would be shorter, but we are where we are. Okay, the next one inspired us to do our little thumbnail today. It says, when will people start saying, thank you, Mr. President, for firing James Comey?
Thank you, Mr. President, for firing James Comey, that slimy swamp rat. Ugh. Every time he lied, it just sends chills up my spine because I knew he was going to plead down to perjury from sedition and treason. He's going to plead to perjury. Mark our words.
Well, somebody would have to permit that plea. Mm-hmm. And that's who we need to be carefully watching. Okay, the next one is the Obama administration is now accused of trying to give Iran secret access to the financial system of the United States. This is totally illegal. Perhaps we could get the 13 angry Democrats to divert some of their energy to this, quote, matter, close quote, as Comey would call it. Investigate.
Okay, this puts Obama in jail. How many times have we said, how much money did Obama give them? Why did he give it to them on pallets? What denominations they were? If we know those denominations, we'll know what really happened. It has now come out, folks. This is just unbelievable. The only money that Obama owed them was about $400,000, but it had accumulated some interest, so he said he was going to give them 1.4 or 1.5 billion, right? He said this many times, and then sometimes he says, oh, we gave him 2.5 billion. So you never can tie him down. He gave 5.7 billion. Now, let's take out the money that we know that we owed them, and we didn't owe them the interest because these were sanctions. So why did he give them all that money? And why did he deliver it on pallets in non-U.S. currency? No one could ever figure this out. And we said, this has to be a crime. This has to be a crime. And we were speculating, and I want to take that back. By the way, I made a mistake the other day. I said 17.3 from New Zealand to the Hillary Clinton Foundation. It was 13.7. But anyway, why did he give all this money back? Why did he lift sanctions? So that they would continue to do their nuclear program, which now they brag they've continued all along, and they're starting up their uranium enrichment plant again, which has been going all along. Hello, Mr. Netanyahu, who supposedly raided Iran and got all their plans and showed that they really had the plan. No, they were doing it all along. We told you this. Lord Almighty, it's underground. It's in the very same place as it was before. They just turned it back on. You guys are so ridiculous. So the Obama-Iran deal was basically to fund the Shiite radical Muslims, Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, and it spread from Iran in money to Iraq, and then it spread to Syria. Now it's just flowing like wildfire in money and arms, whatever. They don't give arms all the way to the Palestinian group, but they give it to Hamas, they give it to Hezbollah, and all those new weapons, the many, many missiles fired at Israel. Thank you, Mr. Obama. You paid for those with French dollar, with EU. He actually forced, when he did this deal, and it was 5.7 billion, he went to a number of banks in America and said, no, I'm going to take care of this. You just run this money through your banks. And they said, sir, there's sanctions. It's illegal, because sanctions still weren't even raised. And they said, no, can't do it, sir. And he goes, no, I'm the president. You're going to do this. And they said, no, they refused to do it. So then he went to the EU and said, you guys got to launder this money for us. They want it in cash. They won't take it in U.S. digitals.
Okay, but you realize how stupid these people are all the way around. First, that they're demanding the money in cash. Hello, people. You got to do something with the cash. When you get the pallets of cash, you have to put it someplace. So that means you either put it like Saddam Hussein did in between your walls, right?
Yes.
Or you put it in the bank, but if there's sanctions, you can't put them in the bank.
Oh, he defeats them every time he opens his mouth. He calls what I'm going to call Iran Gate. We have been waiting for this one. I've told you, the moment that we know how much money and what the denomination was, we will see the crime. I have said this so many times, I can't count. Okay? 5.7 billion, as illegal as it could possibly be, through the European Union, which makes all of them complicit. This is unbelievable. This means that the leaders of the European Union have been lying to their countries, just like Obama, over Iran Gate, and Iran has continued to enrich uranium nonstop. They now admit it. So your entire Iran deal was nonsense. And then you gave interest on the $400,000 that you froze back in the 70s. Mr. President Obama, you are a criminal. And just as Mr. President Donald J. Trump says right here, this is illegal. And who did it? John Kerry, and that's the reason he was trying to get Iran. They called John Kerry Iran Gate, trying to beg with them. And Iran threatened, I'm going to tell who we bribed. I'm going to tell who we bribed. And we said, oh, well, they bribed for sure a lot of Americans, John Kerry and his family and everybody else that could get their fingers in that pie. And then we said, and probably others. And I said, off the top of my head, France. France was part of this. But much more than France. The entire EU was part of it. But France had their secret pipeline. So that's the reason I said France. So this is Iran Gate. This is as big as Spygate. This is a criminal activity of extortion to create radical Islamic terrorism.
Well, you're going to find in the end, as we continue to do the research, it's going to all be tied into the Spygate and the Brits.
Well, the Brits would be part of the EU, so the Brits were 100% complicit with this.
Well, and when I say Brits, the good people of Britain,
No.
We are not talking about you, because you may not even know this is going on because of the way your media is keeping things from you, and how your freedoms, which I realize you don't have a Bill of Rights, but just speech is even being curtailed. So when we are speaking about the Brits in this angry way, we're talking about your elite, your monarchy that is doing this all around the world. This in this new world we're entering, we do not need popes, kings, and queens anymore. Okay.
No, I want to underscore what you just said.
Don't forget that John Kerry was schoolboy friends of Robert Mueller's. We see the pictures all over the internet where they went to the same secondary school. So these two are thick as thieves.
Totally. Now, one more thing. Just as you said, I want to underscore that. We're sick of monarchies. We're sick of unelected EU officials who are basically running a Soros monarchy, folks. This is an economic terroristic monarchy, just like the British monarchy has always been. It subsumed the British East India Company, the biggest corporation that was a warlord corporation. Holland subsumed, and that's part of the EU, has subsumed the Danish, the Dutch East India Company, and then the German traders. If you look back, this all started with the bankers who came out of Venice and they went to Hamburg.
We can't go there.
But anyway.
It's too much.
Sorry, but the point is he's saying is, don't degrade the Iran Gate, extortion money, and illegal activity of Obama and call it a matter now, when you're calling my witch hunt an investigation, though you had said 3 times there was no investigation, and that these angry 13 Democrats should simply look in the other direction and see that there was not only Russian collusion, there was British collusion, there was Iranian collusion, there was 2 million people killed by Obama, and we need to look into Iran Gate because we gave $5.7 billion to our enemies so that they could give weapons to our enemies and they could build nuclear weapons. Mr. Obama, you can't hide anymore.
And the last tweet is a great little clip called Making America Great Again. You have anything to say about that? It's just a feel-good thing. Touts the good job numbers and a little reminder that Hillary and Obama were has-beens.
This is Brad Parscale sticking their nose in it, rubbing their nose in it again and again. This is like the 3rd or 4th time they brought up these numbers that are still not even being looked at by mainstream media. Unbelievable numbers. Some of the mainstream media have said some things, and they've said, we don't even have words for this. This is beyond words. This is beyond numbers. We've never seen anything like this. And yet they won't address it. This shows the evil of mainstream media.